Hello, I'm Czardus. Grab some coffee, sit back and relapse as we take a look at the maps in City Skylines 1 Map Pack 3. First up, we have Caldera County, which is a temperate map with no ship route, and you can understand why there's no ship route. Looking at the map right now, you can see there's no way for a ship to get into this caldera. And so that's what we've got here. And just a real quick shout out to Teddy Radko, who has done an amazing job with these maps and is the content creator who made all of them in the map pack. Let's take a look at Caldera County. This is your starting square here. And what you can see is that we have a nice interchange here coming off and into the area that you can build. You've got some nice dirt roads that you can kind of work with to probably have a little bit of a realistic feel to it. You've got rail in there automatically, and let's take a look at resources. So you have a good mix here of fertile land and a bit of oil. Mostly that is done to paint here, but you could buy tiles out this way. You have a nice resource there. There's not a ton of ore on the map. It looks like there might be some mixed in to the water there, but also a little bit way out here. I don't know that you can reach that with the vanilla 9 tiles, but you might be able to. But anyway, that is a lot of the cool features here of this map. And yeah, I think we'll go ahead and take a look at the next one. Next up, we have Expedition Harbor, which is a boreal map, which is why it is so dark, but also it is having all the shipping connections and things like that. You know, you got rail, road, ship, and air, so you can really build to your heart's content. It has a lot of water, though, so keep that in mind. But it is a great spot for building a city, and we'll take a look here in a minute at some of the details as we zoom in now on the start square. We're going to fly over here. You can see a couple interchanges there, and then we come right over here. Again, we have an interchange leading into the start square, and then we have a bit of some nice dirt roads that you can build kind of a historic city around as well. And so those are things to keep in mind here. Now, what you have is also this beautiful work here with a lighthouse coming out here. Vanilla assets only, of course. And you can see we've got a great view here of a nice harbor coming in here. And you can just imagine a city really growing around here. Let's take a look at some of the details. We have nice resources here. You've got a bit of farmland, and you have offshore oil that you can work with. You have offshore ore as well, especially over here. You could do a lot of ore on this map, or timber, of course. Timber is always good in boreal ones. And let's also take a look at the terrain. It is very flat in this area where you would really want to build your city. A lot of buildable space there. So that is this one. Moving on to the next one. All right, next up is Fondu Lake. This is a European map with all connections, and you can see it has great valley sort of thing going on here and a really nice lake. And also, I really like the start square. You'll see why in a moment if you know some of what I like. But again, a very beautiful map with lots of scenery to really build your city around. You've got some valleys to deal with and a nice hill in the area to deal with as well, or a few hills actually, so that you can get some mountain stuff. But here we are at the start square, and you can see we've got this great train line coming right through. It comes along here, and then you can build a nice train station here. I think you could really get something good looking in there for your main downtown core, like right here. And then you could also have maybe some resorts and hotels up on that hill. I could really see a lot of things going well here. And let's take a look at a couple of the details here. We've got natural resources, a lot of farmland in there. You've got ore up on the mountains, which mostly was used for painting the terrain or the theming and stuff like that. But then you've got ore out here that you can get some quarries in and stuff like that. You've got a little bit of oil, not a ton of oil on this map, but it has a lot that you can work with. Looking at the terrain, your start square does have this major hill in here that you have to deal with a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad. And then you've got a lot of open space that you can really build a city into this flat area and all around this harbor on this lake as well. The lake is really a large area, and let's take a look really quick at the transportation so we can see the shipping route comes in here, and it really is just in this lake, but it does come out here as well. So you've got like this long lake. You can imagine that maybe this is a fjord or something like that coming into a nice region here. Moving on to the next one. Next up, we have Karstlands. This is a tropical map with no ship connection, and it has a really cool feature on the starting square, which I'm really excited to show you. But it kind of feels a little bit to me like maybe a fantasy-inspired map, a tiny bit, just because of the hills and mountains here. Just give me that vibe a tiny bit. But also, I think it would be a fun one to build on because you do have these pockets of flat land that you can build on along this river. But here you can see the start square and what I'm talking about with this special feature here, which is a really cool little thing that looks like maybe an old medieval town or something. You've got a moat around here and then a bridge, of course, and in the center you have a abandoned cemetery and all these abandoned homes. But you can build around that, and that could be like your historic town square and stuff like that. I really like that. I think it's fun. And looking at the natural resources, you again have a lot of spaces that you can get farms out there, and then you've got a little bit of oil here in a lowland that you can work with, and of course ore as well. Moving on to the next one. All right, next up we have Milestone Valley. This is a temperate map with no ship connection, and you can see that this one is really made for a huge city. You can imagine that this would be somewhere in North America, I would assume. You've got a river going through, you've got this valley, and then you've got some hills alongside it, and it's just a massive area for building a city. Lots of flat land, and we'll take a look here at the start square in a moment as we come in, and you can see you've got kind of those circles of farms as well. But here we have a start square that has a bit of roads marked off where the survey lines would be for North America, where the land was surveyed, and then it became easy to sell it. And so you can see also that there was a railroad here that could be your historic bases for the city as well. And then a interstate came through, or a larger national highway came through as well. So that is kind of the idea behind this map, I assume. And then natural resources, there is a ton of ore and some oil as well. Mostly that was done to really get those circles in there and get the coloring and stuff like that. But it makes it easy for you to have large quarries or large oil fields and stuff like that. But again, it's super flat, lots of buildable area that you can build a gigantic city on this map. Now, moving on to the next one. All right, and next up we have Nordheim, a boreal map with all routes available. And you can see this one is a pretty standard boreal map. You've got a waterfront area and then mountains in the background and lots of trees that you can work with. But it also has this giant quarry here you can see on the screen as we fly by it. We'll take a look a little bit more at it in a second. But first, let's move into the start square. So we come over this way, and you can see that we have a nice little area to get a city built. You've got a dog bone interchange there, and then you have a couple roundabouts to build with as well. It has a very Nordish feel to it. Nordish, is that a word? Nord feel, Norwegian feel. How about that? Let's go with that. Norwegian feel. You've got a key along here. You can have a waterfront as well. And then over here, you've got an abandoned home that has a little path going out to it. But then you've got rail in the start square as well. And let's go look at that quarry out here. It has a nice feel to it, a nice little background thing. But also you could work your way out here, and let's see what resources there. Yep, very nice. We've got ore there, so you could build a nice quarry along with that, and that could be a basis for a huge industry. Or you could do offshore oil over here. Or of course you could just do a ton of timber as well. Looking at the terrain, we do have a pretty relatively flat area in here that you could work with. I think it lends itself more for a smaller city, or maybe you build out onto this island. You decide. It's your map, and you could be playing on it right now. But moving on to the next one. Next up, we have Orca Sound, which is a European map with all routes available. And this one, I really like. I think this one would be so fun to build on because you've got a challenge. You've got a lot of terrain that you have to work with, especially with the water. And you can go in there and you could, especially if you're using mods so that you can have all tiles unlocked, you could build a huge city outside of the mountains. And then you could also, or alternatively, you could have smaller cities, and then you could have like them connected by ferries and things like that, which, the ferries probably wouldn't get much use anyway, but they would be interesting to have going across the water and stuff like that, or even just fishing. But here's your start square. You have this big bridge right across the middle to get over the shipping route so that you can build in here, and you can get it. Probably would be a little bit of a challenging start, to be honest, because you don't have a ton of buildable space on that start square. But let's take a look at resources. You have a bit of offshore oil that you can work with, or offshore ore as well. And terrain, you've got these big mountains to work with, and the water itself would be a huge challenge from the terrain. So I really like this map. I hope you check it out. Moving on to the next one. And next up is Promise Island. This is a tropical map with all routes available, and it gives me a feel of like a Bora Bora. So you've got a volcano there in the center of this island that has, it's an old volcano that of course has erupted at some point and collapsed on the center. So we've got a bit of a caldera there. But then you also have a little bit of motus surrounding it a little bit. And of course, this does work in vanilla because you can see there is a road off to the right that leads in. And now we're coming into the start square, and you can see that we have multiple roundabouts there. That we've got a highway on the map that goes to the external connection, but you've got roundabouts here that you can use to really build off of that. And you have a lot of space here to build out. You can really get a nice tropical city here built. And let's take a look at natural resources. You've got a bit of ore over there you can work with. You can work with that. Or, of course, you could go into the caldera itself and get ore from there. You can imagine them mining obsidian, maybe. Oh, there goes my dog. And over here, we've got terrain, a nice look at the terrain, lots of flat land that you can work with. But let's move on to the next one. And next up is Redcliff Reservoir. Now, technically, this is a European map with no ship route, I believe, but it really is, you can tell, an American Southwest map with a big reservoir. Or I suppose it could be maybe an African map, or anywhere where there are a desert area with water that could be a large reservoir. But you can tell that you've got a lot of space here that you can work with to really build a city along this reservoir. You've got some nice highways along there. And then let's take a look at the start square as well. So we come in here and you have a rail line going right through it. And then, of course, the highway along there as well. Very basic diamond interchange there, but you could expand that as needed. And then you've got a road coming in here going into a little peninsula on the reservoir that you can really work with. Looking at natural resources, you've got a lot of oil there. You have fertile land under the water, so you're not really going to be able to use that very much. But you've got the oil, and then you've got the ore on the surrounding cliffs as well. looking at the terrain, again, it is kind of flat, but you do have a bit of a challenge. There is a lot of hills to work with there as well. So this map would be pretty fun to build on and a little bit challenging. It looks flatter than it actually is, so keep that in mind. But moving on to the next one. And next up, we have Tranquility Cove, which is a temperate map with all connections available. And here, again, you have a large water-based challenge. You have a lot of water that you have to deal with, but you also have a lot of flat space. So I think you could really build a big city on this one, and you have a lot of options for, getting away from a grid-based city. And then you also have these nice highways to give you some good traffic flow coming through there. But let's take a look at the start square. It is a little bit cluttered. There's a lot going on in the start square. So if you are building without mods, you're going to have a bit of a challenge to figure out where to put your city on here. I mean, you could work, of course, with a lot of what you've got here, and probably you would put maybe industry over here and then residential over here, perhaps. But there are options for it, and you could do it, but it is a little bit cluttered there that you have to work with. But let's take a look really quick. Resources, you've got a bit of offshore ore that you can work with. You have a little bit of oil around as well. But also you've got fertile land in some spots, and then of course the trees. Then for terrain, you have mostly flat and a large buildable area that you can work with. So another good map. And that's it for this map pack. Be sure to click on the video on the screen to check out other map packs that have come out, and I am sure you will enjoy that video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Take care.